Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're jumping straight into a bit of a technical maze. It's one that really highlights the risks, but also the potential rewards of buying used camera gear. Our focus. It's a dilemma lots of photographers face when they're maybe upgrading or just trying to find a good deal. We're calling it the legacy lens dilemma. Specifically, we're digging into a really critical trade-off based on our sources. It's this choice. Do you go for a used entry-level Nikon DSLR, say the D3200, because you already own some Nikon lenses? Or do you kind of cut your losses on that old gear and jump to a completely different modern system like the Sony A6400? Maybe you've got, a bunch of perfectly good Nikon lenses sitting around. So naturally, grabbing that D3200 body seems like the smart move, right?
Yeah.
Financially responsible, it uses what you've got. It looks like easy system compatibility, avoiding that big hit of buying all new stuff. But there's a catch, a very specific technical snag hidden in there. Our mission today is to pull out that one crucial detail that can make the whole money-saving idea just fall apart.
And that desire to reuse what you already own, it's totally understandable. Makes complete sense on the surface. You own Nikon glass, you buy a Nikon body. Simple. But, as the sources point out, it's not just about the brand name on the box. It's about the nitty-gritty mechanical compatibility. And that changes, sometimes dramatically, depending on which generation of Nikon gear you're talking about. The specific lenses causing the headache here are those really common, older Nikon AF-D lenses.
Right.
For anyone not deep into Nikon history, that AF-D part is absolutely key. Now, these lenses, optically, often fantastic, really great glass, but they autofocus using a mechanical connection. Think of it like a little screwdriver tip, a screwdriver that pokes out from the camera body into the lens mount. That little thing physically turns the focus gears inside the lens, so they completely depend on a motor being inside the camera body itself to autofocus.
Ah, okay, so the lens is just passive in that sense. The camera's doing all the autofocus work.
Exactly.
Which makes the choice of the camera body not just like important, but fundamental to whether the lens even works as intended.
Okay, let's unpack this properly then, because here's where that budget-friendly D3200 option gets, well, really tricky. When you actually look closely at the specs for the Nikon D3200, which is exactly the kind of cheap body someone with old AF-D lenses might target, you find the trap. It doesn't have that built-in autofocus motor. Nikon left it out, probably to cut costs, maybe make it smaller for their entry-level cameras.
And that single missing piece of hardware, it changes everything. It's the difference between seamless use and, well, major functional impairment.
Yeah.
Because those AF-D lenses need that screwdrive motor from the body.
Right.
If you mount them on a D3200, they simply cannot autofocus at all.
Wow. So hang on. You can still put the lens on the camera, take picture.
Oh, yeah. You can mount it. You can take photos. But you're instantly forced into manual focus mode only.
Okay.
And that is the crucial detail. It basically defeats the entire reason you bought the D3200 in the first place, doesn't it?
Yeah, completely. You chose it thinking, great, I save money, use my autofocus lenses, and boom, suddenly those lenses are manual focus only.
That's genuinely surprising to me because Nikon, they have this reputation for amazing backward compatibility, supporting lenses from decades ago. Was this like a deliberate choice or just something they overlooked for the cheap models?
Oh, it's definitely deliberate, a cost-saving design choice. And it's really important for you, the listener, to know this isn't just the D3200. It applies to most of Nikon's lower-end DSLR bodies. The D40, D60, the whole D3000 series, the D5000 series.
Oh, okay. So it's a pattern.
It is. Nikon assumed, probably correctly for many buyers, that people getting these entry-level cameras would buy newer AFS lenses. Those have the focus motor built into the lens. But for someone specifically trying to reuse that older, often excellent AF-D glass, it's, well, kind of catastrophic for their plan.
So the money you thought you saved on the camera body, it's immediately wiped out, or maybe even worse, because your lens collection just lost its key feature. And this puts you right into that tough spot our source material highlights, this forced choice. Abandonment versus adoption. You basically have to decide now. Okay, option one. Do you just accept that your beloved AF-D lenses are now manual focus only on the D3200? Which, maybe that's fine if you're doing very slow, controlled shooting. But for anything happening quickly, forget it. Or option two. Do you admit the D3200 is just a dead end for your existing gear and make the jump? Switch entirely to something like the Sony A6400.
And connecting that to the bigger picture,
Yep.
Yeah, that choice to switch systems to the Sony A6400, which is, technically superior in many ways, modern mirrorless, That's often the more painful path, at least initially. The D3200 body might only set you back, what, $150 used? Maybe
Yeah.
less.
Yeah, they're cheap.
The A6400 body alone could easily be 4, maybe 5 times that. But the real financial hit isn't just the body, it's the lenses you now have to buy.
Right, because your Nikon AF-D glass isn't going to autofocus on the Sony either, even with that adapter, right?
Exactly.
Mm.
Even with expensive adapters,
Yeah.
getting reliable autofocus with those old screw-drive lenses on a Sony body is problematic at best. Often just doesn't work well, if at all. So you're looking at significant extra costs. Think about it. You need new glass for the Sony E-mount. Just a basic, decent kit lens like Sony's 1650mm power zoom.
Yeah.
That could easily be another, what, $300, $400 new or used.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want a nice fast prime lens, something equivalent to maybe an old Nikon 50mm f1.8 AF-D, that's another chunk of change for the Sony system.
So that initial idea of saving money by using, say, a beautiful old 50mm f1.4 AF-D on the cheap D3200 suddenly turns into needing to spend maybe $700, $800 or more just for the Sony body and one basic lens,
Right.
simply to get back the autofocus functionality you thought you had.
Precisely. The source material really forces you to weigh these costs. Is saving, say, $150 on a camera body worth giving up the core function autofocus on potentially thousands of dollars worth of legacy lenses? Or is it ultimately smarter, though more expensive upfront, to just bite the bullet?
Mm-hmm.
Start fresh with the A6400, knowing you're investing in a system that's more current, maybe more future-proof.
Okay, but wait. There's maybe a third option here, isn't there?
Yeah.
Something that keeps you with Nikon. You said the D3200 does work fine with the newer Nikon AFS lenses, the ones with the motor inside the lens.
That's correct, yes.
So couldn't you just sell your old AF-D lenses and buy used AFS versions instead? Stay with Nikon. Just update the lenses.
That's a very sharp point.
Yeah.
And yes, technically that is the Nikon workaround. You could absolutely do that. But think about the original goal. It was to use your existing investment, right?
Yeah.
To save money by leveraging the gear you already own.
Ah, right. Selling and buying still costs money.
Exactly. You've got the hassle and potential loss of selling the old lenses, and then you're spending money, often more money, to buy the AFS replacements, even used. So you've basically just shifted the extra spending. Instead of investing in Sony gear, you're now investing in newer generation Nikon lenses. All because that one little motor was missing from the cheap D3200 body you picked up.
Oh, okay.
So the bottom line, in this scenario we're exploring, kind of stays the same, doesn't it? Buying that cheap D3200 body forces you into unexpected, significant extra spending on lenses one way or another, whether you go Sony or whether you upgrade within Nikon.
This really shifts the whole discussion then. It moves away from just Nikon versus Sony or brand loyalty. It becomes a much deeper question. If both paths end up costing you quite a bit more than you initially thought, what should be the deciding factor? We have to pivot from just the cost to the actual function.
And this is exactly where the source material gives us some really actionable insight. It says the best choice, the right compromise for you, depends critically on what you actually shoot, your specific subject matter, your photographic style. That dictates which compromise is okay and which one is a deal breaker.
Okay, how so?
Well, for instance, if your main thing is very controlled photography, maybe studio still life, carefully set up portraits, or perhaps dedicated macro photography on a tripod.
Right, where speed isn't the main concern.
Precisely. In those cases, losing autofocus on the D3200 with your AF-D lenses might actually be tolerable. For macro work especially, a lot of photographers prefer manual focus anyway for that pinpoint accuracy. And in that context, the camera body itself is often less critical than having a really good macro lens. So for that specific style, the cheap D3200 using manual focus AF-D lenses could still be a workable, very budget-friendly solution.
But, okay, that feels like a pretty niche case. For the vast majority of photography street shooting, grabbing quick photos of family, kids, pets, any kind of action or sports, losing autofocus isn't just inconvenient, it's functionally crippling, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. If speed, responsiveness, capturing fleeting moments is important to you, then that lack of autofocus on the D3200 makes it a non-starter with those lenses. In that scenario, if you prioritize things like speed, maybe portability, better performance and low light, all areas where a modern mirrorless like the A6400 tends to excel, then making the switch to Sony starts to look like the only truly viable path. It's expensive, yes, but the A6400 system delivers features the old D3200 just can't touch. Think way better video, much faster and more sophisticated continuous autofocus tracking, smaller size generally.
So the question you should be asking yourself isn't just which system saves me money up front. It's more like which camera body actually lets the lenses I need for my kind of shooting work the way they're supposed to.
Exactly that. That's the key takeaway for you, the listener, from this whole deep dive. Your lens needs what you require to capture the images you want. That has to be the number one priority, the non-negotiable part of the decision. If buying the cheap body means your existing perfectly good lenses can't perform their main function, then that body is fundamentally the wrong choice for you, no matter what brand is on it or how low the initial price tag was. It's a potentially expensive lesson in really understanding system mechanics before you buy.
Yeah, this deep dive really confirms it. The used camera market's definitely got some landmines hidden away in those tech specs. We started with what seemed like a straightforward choice. The cheap Nikon D3200 looks great for using your old AF-D lenses versus the much higher cost of jumping ship to the Sony A6400. And what we found was that one specific intentional design choice in the D3200, leaving out that internal screwdriver motor, fundamentally breaks the compatibility promise for those older lenses. It makes autofocus impossible, completely undermining the whole financial argument for sticking with that Nikon body. It forces you into a situation where you will be spending more money either buying newer Nikon AFS lenses or making that full expensive switch to the A6400 and its E-mount system.
And that specific dilemma, the AF-D lens versus the motorless entry-level Nikon body, it really serves as a powerful reminder, doesn't it? Technical details, especially around backward compatibility and those budget-driven engineering choices, can completely change the value proposition of gear you already own. You just can't assume that because it's the same brand, everything will work seamlessly together, especially across different generations or product tiers. So the final thought we want to leave you with today, something to really mull over, is this. Given how many of these specific compatibility quirks exist across all camera brands, things like missing motors, different sensor formats affecting lens coverage, adapter limitations, you name it, how deep do you really need to dig? How much research into these nitty-gritty technical specifics should you do before you let that collection of lenses you already own dictate which used camera body you buy next? Because, as we saw today, when you're trying to save money by mixing old and new gear, the devil is well and truly hiding in those forgotten technical details, like a missing internal screw drive.